Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first interview in the Luthier's Journal podcast. My name is Max. I'm your host today, and today I'll be interviewing Samaël Pelletier, an amazing guitar player based in New Brunswick, Canada. He plays metal, fingerstyle acoustic guitar. He went to the States to learn from the biggest music schools in the world, and he now has launched his new school in New Brunswick. And I am very excited to welcome him at the Luthier's Journal to share with him the fascinating story behind his journey and how he motivates musicians from around the world to play guitar. So, without further ado, let's welcome Samaël Pelletier.
Hey, Max.
Hey Sam, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
Doing good yourself?
I'm doing great. It's been a while since we spoke. We actually know ourselves from a couple of years ago when we met in Montreal, and now you're moved it quite a bit. You went back to your hometown where you grew up in New Brunswick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we met at Boutique Tone. It was at Boutique Tone when I was working there back in the day. I think it was still at I think you were still in school. Well, then the Luthier school at that point.
I just left out of school. Yeah, and I had a crazy project with another builder. We wanted to start a line of acoustic guitars. This brings back memories.
This is like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, and we have lived things since that happened. And I think your journey is really interesting and can help a lot of people. Also, the fact that you teach a musician and you have some knowledge about psychology and motivation, and these are all things that are really interesting to me, because learning to play guitar is difficult, and you got some very nice tools that I've heard you mention in your radio show. Yeah, I'm excited to dig your brain a little bit and to see how you see that teaching and motivating people. But I would like to get back to the beginning of your journey. So you grew up in a small town in New Brunswick. How many people is there in this town?
About 1,200. So it's a really, really, really small town. There's more cows in the street than there are cars here. I left. So I grew up here until I was 18, and then at 18, as soon as I graduated, I went to Musician Institute in Los Angeles. So that was quite the culture shock to go from such a small town to one of the biggest cities in the state. Well, the second biggest city in America, basically. It forces you to get out of your comfort zone, out of your social zone, meeting the people that you know. I couldn't speak French. Now I'm better in English. I could speak English then also, but it's one thing to have a conversation in English here and there and to be fully immersed in their language and not having the option to speak French stuff. But that makes you grow. It makes you learn. It makes you learn about yourself. So I stayed in LA for a year and a half at Musician Institute, which was, music wise, that was one of the best experiences of my life. Also, just being surrounded by a crazy level of musicianship, whether it's the professors. It's like some teachers were playing with Supertramp, with the Edgar Winter Band. We had Scott Anderson, which is a legend with jazz fusion. And there were all kinds of crazy musicians. But it humbles you too, because like in a small town that I was in, people said that I was the best guitarist they ever saw, but it's not really saying anything when there's 500 guitarists around you, you know? Just because you can play master of puppet, you become the guitar guy. But it did help my confidence and ego in a bit, just because I started to think, oh, wow, maybe I can do this, having those compliments. Like if I would have grown up in Montreal, I would not have been more special than someone else, I think. And I wonder sometimes if that would have affected my journey, just because I felt I had to do this thing because people were telling me I'm good. But then when you go to LA, you realize, oh shit, there's a thousand of other great guitarists like that. It's not that special in a way. So it humbles you and makes you realize. It made me realize that I can't out-shred people here. And if I'm gonna try doing that, I'm gonna burn myself. My ego's gonna It's gonna take a huge hit. So it forced me to ask questions like, how can I stand out as a musician? What do I have to offer that someone else can't offer? And you have to go beyond technique, beyond technical skills at that point, beyond just over shredding someone there. So it kind of started the journey of trying to figure out what I wanted to say as a musician and what I could bring to the table that was unique to me, basically.
This is fascinating. There's one thing that I don't want to skip over is the moment where, well, what helped a lot is that you had some great feedback from the people around you. And this is something that we see a lot when we look at the story behind successful people. I've heard Serena Williams talk about who surrounded her when she was a kid. She was always around somebody who was encouraging her to do her thing.
Right.
And if you were the best out of 5 guitar players, it doesn't matter if people are saying that they see qualities in you, it definitely helps.
Oh, for sure, for sure. You decrease the amount of doubt in yourself about, is this meant for me? Am I doing the right thing? Or another way to say it, it just makes it more concrete that you are doing the right thing in a way. Even though it's not big numbers, like you're saying, it's just only 5 people. But when 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 you're young, those, however the amount, it makes a difference on how you perceive yourself and how you perceive your skills, basically. But then you do need that humbling experience after a while to realize that it's not quite enough to be a good guitarist in a 1,200 people town. That you have to go
Yeah,
beyond that,
yeah, of
basically.
course. And compliments by themselves are not worth a lot. We can see this, like when we look at the worst additions at the reality shows with talents playing on stage, that their family were saying to them they're the best they've ever seen, but they have no actual skills. So the encouragement is one thing, but you gotta actually work and to learn to do stuff. And when you take the step and you are able to stand in front of an audience, a jury, somebody who judges you, it's the opportunity to receive the feedback. And how you are able to receive the feedback, it changes everything. If you have a bad comment and you're not able to take it in and to really reflect, well, something's not gonna last very long in that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to accept that your own knowledge at that point, well, your whole life, but especially at that
Mhm.
point, is limited. And it's the feedback of people with more experience than you that have good intention, meaning that they're trying to help you and not just put you down. And that type of constructive criticism makes you better. Like, you're not going to get better by focusing what you're good at. You're going to get better by putting those things that you're not good at right in your face and dealing with them and trying to overcome them, or at least recognize them and being aware of them, as opposed to keeping them in the shadows and pretending they're not
Mm-hmm.
there, type of thing.
I see a lot of truth in that. I remember when I was just in guitar making school, uh, I was finishing my program, and there were some builders that were coming in to see our work. And one of them in particular was looking at guitars but didn't say anything. And someone else asked for his feedback. And the guy was kind of a grumpy old man, very talented, but still pretty grumpy. And he looked at
Right?
he,
I see the picture.
and he looked at the student and he said, "Well, do you want compliments or do you want the truth?" And like this question says it all. Do you want to improve? If you do, you gotta
Right.
be able to take, not a beating, but um, if you only take care of the feelings of the person in front of you, you'll not be as good as a mentor as if you were saying the truth and sometimes risking hurting the feelings to make them improve a bit.
Yeah, and as a teacher, um, if you have, and hopefully you do have, the student's best intention in mind, meaning the student's best intention to get better in mind, Like my job as a teacher is to help you get better at guitar. So if I have that in mind, not saying the truth makes me less of a good teacher, basically. But having said that, depending on the level of student, someone who's just start like not, everyone has strength and weaknesses. Some people are well, not naturally good at guitar, but maybe it's just a little easier for them when they're starting. Some people it's harder for them when they're starting, but they could be good at, I don't know, basketball. They could be good at drawing. We all have our, our strengths and weaknesses, basically. So sometimes when someone, one of my students is, it's just working a bit less naturally, let's say, I ask him, I tell the truth, but I also can't be too harsh to the point where they feel like, well, why am I even trying to do this if clearly this is not meant for me? So I have to try to find that balance between saying the truth, but also saying it in a way that doesn't discourage them. So it's not giving out compliments for nothing, but it's focusing on maybe where they can get better, or focusing on spit instead of saying general things like, well, you suck, which would help no one. Saying things like, okay, well, that part you're getting it good, but your index there is having a bit of trouble with that part. Watch your index, so they have something concrete to focus on. And instead of being this vague idea of, I suck at guitar, it's, okay, it's hard, I'm getting it, but my index, I need to work on my index. So they have something concrete in their mind to move towards, to it. As silly as the index, which is just an example, but it's a way to communicate, finding that balance as a teacher between telling the truth but not discouraging them.
Yeah,
Also,
precision matters, and to stay vague
yeah,
is it's a trap, because precision
yes,
requires uh it requires more competence. Like, why is this not good? Well, you
yeah,
need to think and to really point out
right,
what's the actual problem here. This finger is the issue. Okay, you need to see this, and just that by itself is a challenge for the teacher. And then
right, right,
um how you mention this with precision, it requires a different skill, the communication skill. And this is another thing that is not easy. So
yes,
to stay vague, the brain will always want to work less than, you don't want to put yourself in a difficult spot. But if you stay vague, you won't help the student, you won't be precise, you won't be as good a teacher that as
exactly,
if you were precise. um yeah,
exactly,
we
exactly.
are already jumping into the subject that really fascinates me, how you help somebody to improve and to motivate it. There's something in your story that I want to get back to, because you talked about the small town where you grew up, and
Yes,
you had a lot of encouragement, but still it's a small world. And you not only decided to go in a big city to play guitar, you went to one of the biggest music school in the world to play and to learn from the best. And I'm curious, what was your thought process behind making that decision? Was it stressful? Was it something that you just knew you had to do it? Can you bring us in the backstage of that thought process that led you to apply and to go there?
sure. Um, in a way, I was lucky because it could be relating to what we were talking about earlier about people saying I was good in a small town. So, but I had developed this mentality of, this is the path I need to take guitar wise. I mean, like being a musician is the path I need. And I say I'm lucky because by the time I started playing at 12, and by the time I was 15, let's say, um, there was no doubt in my mind that this is the path I had to take. Doesn't mean that I was going to succeed, but like trying anything else is pointless, or it just nothing resonated with me like guitar did, especially during those years. So when came the time to look what to do after high school, um, And when I applied to Musician Institute, I applied to Berkeley back then, but like I didn't know how to sight read. I didn't know, because it's a bit of a different thing with Berkeley, and without getting too deep into it, the Musician Institute has a bit of a different approach as opposed to being they have a bachelor's program, but the popular program is called an associate's degree. And basically the idea in the 70s, when guys like Robert Howard founded the school, was to train people to be session musicians. So instead of being able to, obviously you have to sight read, but it's not as strict and as, I don't want to say closed-minded like typical universities, but a little bit. So I didn't get into Berkeley. I was just not ready for that type of work. Well, not for that type of approach at that point. So I got accepted to Musician Institute, and I never. I'm lucky because I never really stressed about going there. It was just like, oh, this is awesome. And it was I only saw the positive. The only moment where I got a little stressed is the first day I got there. And because my apartment, my apartment going to a Musician Institute is about a mile's walk, and you're walking on the Hollywood Boulevard. So every day you would just walk on that boulevard, and you see all kinds of crazy things. Some fascinating, some horrible, some funny, some not so funny. But the first night I got there was a real culture shock of like, what the hell did I get myself into? But then the day after, I kind of settled in, and I was okay with the idea, and my parents stayed with me the first week, so we got a chance to sort of settle in, and then they left after that. But there was really no. I was so focused in on, this is the school that is gonna make me a better guitarist. This is where I'm gonna meet new people and learn from them, to expand my knowledge, to expand my experience. So and I remember people telling me a couple of years after, like, you were courageous to go there. I'm like, and I didn't really see it that way. It was the only way that made sense to continue the path that I wanted to be on. Not courageous, but just in the sense that to go from a small city to the big city type of thing, it could be scary for some people. But yeah, I'm lucky that I never saw it that way. So it was never stressful in that sense at all.
You got a personality that helps you in that situation where you focused on what you were gaining by going there more than the
Right. What I was
yeah,
losing in a
or
way.
the possible challenges. It was like not part of the thought process, and
No, exactly. A bit naive in a way, but in a way that helped me a lot. So
yeah,
it
I
was a good thing.
definitely, when I see entrepreneurs, artists, especially artists that have their own business, there is something of the naivety that is there at the beginning, and it doesn't have a
Right.
good reputation, but I definitely feel it can be a help at the beginning, because otherwise,
Right. And you drown in all the things that could scare you, or you drown in the idea of the potential risk, and which is way worse than being optimistically naive for a temporary while before you
uh,
actually get on your feet.
and when you got into school and the classes started and you saw people around you that you could not outshred, um, how did you
Right.
deal with that? You were saying you had to find what makes you stand out from those people, besides technique. So how did that go?
Yeah, so like the mindset, I had to switch my mindset, because growing up, I had my first teacher, my only teacher, probably teacher before going to LA, was the owner of the guitar store in my area, a guy called Danny Bernard, which really helped me to develop certain mindset that I didn't realize until years later. Like, he would tell me, like, at first you have to, like, he basically made links between the mindset of a sports player trying to be the best in his sport and guitar. So art and music is more subjective when it comes to who's the best. Obviously, it's more of a difficult question to answer as opposed to hockey or something like that. But you would say things like, you have to start by being the best in your house, then the best on your street, then the best in your town, then the best in your region, then in your province. Then in your country, it started to get difficult, but the idea was just to, continuously um, keep that mindset of a hungry mindset of trying to, get better and better. But then when I got to LA and like you were saying, seeing all these other great players, that's where you realize, okay, I kind of, I'm still gonna get better, but trying to outtread someone who already outtreads me is it really that what's music about in a way? Like it made me question: is music all about? Is music reduced to being just the best technically? And so that started the journey of like what is important about music to me? What makes me like? Why do I react to certain players in certain way and not other players? So why can I why am I listening to someone shred and being impressed with my eyes, but then after 2 or 3 songs, I'm like, okay, something else now, please. I'm not saying it's bad, just my personal taste, though. But then I would listen to something not as technical, but as a story, has a meaning, that has a connection to something, an emotion to something that I was feeling, and I could just listen to that over and over and over without ever wanting to skip the song. So it started to make me realize what was important to me about music, and and then the next step was because whether it's music or in life, the goal I think, well, a goal of life is to try to find out who you are as a person. So whether that's just your inner strength, inner weaknesses, being aware of them, your hopes, your fears, you're just being completely aware as much as you can to who you are as a person, and how do you how do you distinct yourself from others? And then when you apply that to music, that's where you can find an answer how to stand out, because no one can be Max like Max is Max. No one can be me like I am me. So trying to emulate someone else is a road that's going to lead to failure, because I'm never going to, whatever, let's say, I know I'm thinking of Randy Rhoads right now, but let's say I want to be, I love Randy Rhoads playing. If I want to be a copycat of Randy Rhoads, I'm never going to be good like Randy Rhoads is. Yeah, not good, but I'm never gonna get the essence of what Randy Rhoads is the way he's doing it. So the only way on this path is to find out what my essence is and try to hone in on that. Because no one can be me like I am me. So once I start to do that, then on guitar you have to figure out, okay, what what are certain harmonies, what are certain sounds, what are certain chord progressions that maybe not are unique to me, because there's not a limited amount of tools, but a lot of things have been done already. But you can combine different techniques and different ideas and make a melting pot that is unique to you. Having all said that, at this point, I'm not necessarily in LA anymore. Like I started to ask these questions in LA, but I didn't get the answers right away. It took several years before I could actually feel confident and having a concrete answer as to what I can offer on guitar as opposed to someone else. Yeah. But that all started with going in school and realizing, okay, technique is not how I should. Obviously, you need a minimum of technique, otherwise you can't. Like technique is meant to express. Is technique is the amount of technique you need is related to what you're trying to express musically. Meaning, if what you're trying to express musically is a punk song, I'm not putting punk down. I'm just saying you need a bit less technique as opposed to if you're trying to express something musically with jazz. So the amount of technique you should work on is directly related to what you are trying to express as a musician. But it's still not the only criteria by which you evaluate or judge a musician. So that all started by going into LA and ended up starting the journey of how to find my voice as an artist, basically.
That's very interesting. And it took you a couple of years to find that out, because this is a big question and you can't just find
Right.
it the next day.
Right.
And maybe some people do, but
No.
they'll find out the following year that that wasn't it. So,
Right. It's an illusion almost. Like, you think it's something, but you realize, oh,
mhm.
wait, that's not quite
Yeah,
it.
and I remember seeing you on stage I think it was it Car Chaos? I think it was a metal band called Car Chaos you were playing in.
Yeah. I played with Carcaos from 2013
Mm-hmm.
to 18.
Yeah, I remember this guy on stage with the long hair and the silver guitar, like shredding like crazy,
Right?
but also um there was so much energy coming out of you. Like you were you seemed like you were having a lot of fun. And when I
Right?
look at musician on stage, if it's a band, I always look at everyone on stage, and there is somebody who brings me in his world that just draws me
Yeah.
into the show. And sometimes it's the frontman, sometimes it's the guitar player. It can even be the drummer. That happened a few times. It doesn't matter where you're standing. It's more about the mindset, the yeah,
The
the
energy
energy you
almost.
bring to the table. And yeah, this shook me like because playing on stage is nothing but easy, and
Great.
you definitely stand out to me. So can you tell me a little bit about um how do you approach the moment where well, maybe before asking you like how to perform on stage, was this a moment where you had found some of the essence you bring to the table that is different to the technique, or was it not there yet?
Depends. In the early days of Carcaos, maybe I was starting to get there. I think it had been by the time we recorded the album Children of the Void in 2016. Then I would say yes at that point. Um, and to me, again, the essence of who I am as a musician relates a lot to the choice of notes, how you play those notes, how you articulate those notes. And everyone can play E note, and some people it's just it's an E note. Like some people, I remember seeing this at boutique tone also because when I worked there, it was a lot of I was younger then, but a lot of the session studio guys from the city older than me would come and buy stuff. So I'd see a lot, like kind of like LA, but LA was people more my age. Just was more people who had been on the scene for like 20 years or something. So and in my years had been more developed. So I would see people with just playing one note, and you knew already this guy was something just by playing one note. But to get back to your question, um, yeah, I was at the finding yourself as a musician is a lifelong journey. First of all, it's not like there's an end point where I discovered everything and then I'm done. I can go on to something else. But you do hit a certain point where you have a more concrete answer on how to answer who you are as a musician, what you have to offer. So I was arriving at that point when I was starting to play with Carcass. But I still had issues. I'm hesitating to say confidence issues, but a little bit in the um, because I wouldn't make a big deal out of making mistakes. I would make a big deal psychologically out of making a mistakes. And in a way, that's good because it forced me to really make sure I would practice. I would over prepare because I wanted to put chance on my side. And also, I knew if I didn't practice, then it's going to be more mistake and I'll just be miserable about my performance. So, but it gets to a point where focusing in on mistakes and apprehending the mistakes that will come later, it kind of it plays against you after a while. So it's hard to know when to make that switch up, but I did have to make the switch of letting go. Like, who cares if there's a mistake? Who cares if I'm not saying a mistake every three notes in a song. Like there's a level of acceptable mistake, let's say, when you're doing a performance. Um, and things that help me a lot to gain that confidence on stage and to keep the energy of having fun, and even if it's a mistake, to not let that bother you, honestly, was different psychological tricks, different books I was reading at that time, and that basically the knowledge of that, of answering those questions, came not necessarily from, well, not from within, but rather from experience of people who had been through those phases, who had been through these these challenges and could overcome them. So you can learn. That's how that you learn from people by their experience, but sometimes also by, you can learn from someone by knowing, okay, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do that. So there's all kinds of ways to learn from others. So that's where the outside information, as opposed to just practicing and playing the guitar and refining my technique, that's where outside knowledge, like with books on music or psychology, really helped me to own the right mindset to prepare, to perform, to get to the to go to the next level of musicianship. That to go to the next level of musicianship, but without actually focusing only on technique.
Yeah, if you tell your brain that he needs to avoid doing a mistake, it's like you're screwed.
You're screwed.
Uh, a good
Exactly.
goal is to identify something you want to go towards, not something that you want to avoid. Like when you ride a
Right.
motorcycle, I did try. I did try once. How do you call this? A dirt bike, and there was a concrete wall right next to the track, and oh yeah, and it went fine, but there was just one time that I just got the bike going and I looked at the wall because I was heading straight into it. And the more I was going towards it, I was looking at it. And this is the best way to crash is by looking at where you don't want to go. So when you drive, well, anything, but especially a motorcycle, you need to look at where you're going, not where you want to avoid. And the brain works the same way. So if you go on stage and you try to avoid doing a mistake, um, we see that in art, in athletes too. An athlete that is
Right.
hesitant, um, in hockey, we say he skates on his heels. You need to
Right.
move, you need to have the intention moving forward and to go towards something. So this is something that makes a lot of sense, that you don't want to have the mindset of avoiding a mistake. And it also, it's not compatible with the performance mindset. You can have some, there is a fine line between anxiety and excitement. And if you have
Right.
too much anxiety, there is something that cannot be expressed as truthfully if you're in protection mode.
Yeah, definitely. And you made me think of something of, 'cause, like, sometimes, I don't remember a specific instance of this, but like, it definitely happened where you start playing, whether it's an actual concert or just in front of people. Because playing in your bedroom is easy. Anyone can play in their bedroom. And our best moment happens in our bedroom, meaning like, oh man, this is working so great, but there's no pressure of someone watching you, and just the idea of, well, for example, like I went to play golf recently with my dad, and I would hit the driving range and like miss the first three, and then get the fourth one, like, oh, I got this, and then get the fifth one, oh, I got this, I'm ready. But then when you go in an actual game, you can't get the fourth or fifth one. You have to get the first one. There's no chance to retry. So music is the same way. When you're in your bedroom and you make a mistake, you can just retry it and then feel good about yourself because you ended up having it, but on the second try. In the concert, where you can't, oh, sorry guys, we're gonna restart the song. We made a small mistake here, and we're taking over from the top. You can't do that. You have to accept you made a mistake, move on, and then the point I'm trying to make, which is the hardest part, not let your own head get caught up by that mistake. Not let that mistake get in your head and then building up anxiety over it. Basically, like, oh man, I can't believe I made a mistake. I practiced that part for weeks, and now I'm like, if you start to think like that while you're playing, not only did you make a mistake initially, but you're now not in the moment anymore, and you're gonna add more mistake. You're increasing the chance of just adding more and more mistakes because you let that mistake take over anxiety, basically. So, so embracing your mistakes or just accepting your mistakes is really important. And there are tricks. I forget where I read this, but a really good trick that I tell students is that if you make a mistake, or if you anxiety starts, even if it's light anxiety, whatever starts to build up, practice refocusing your perception on the physical world. Meaning, put your focus on how the string feels at the tip of your finger, or how you feel the plastic of the pick in your right hand as you're playing. So you remove yourself from your mental world and come back to the physical world by feeling your senses. And 10 times out of 10, for me at least, and for students, that works. As long as sometimes your brain might go back to the anxiety, but you just have to practice recognizing that, being aware of that, and then coming back to the real world, the physical world in a way. So that's a real concrete trick to fight the building anxiety within you when something like that happens.
That's a great trick. You're right that staying in your head it can be a spiral that never ends, and you just need to get out of it. There is
Right?
um a loop when you got the hamster spinning in your head that it just never stops. Well, there there is a trap in that, thinking that if you think about it enough, you will find a solution, you will figure out a way out of this, but it's not how this works. 'Cause you feel like
Right,
you
right.
are working on the problem by focusing on it, but you're just making it worse. And
Yeah, you're
yeah,
amplifying
and
it.
like you're saying, the idea to you need to notice that your head starts spinning with something that's not productive, and you need to get yourself out of there with something concrete, how your finger feels, uh, the look of people, like how does the room smells, what are you surrounded with, is it
Right,
hot,
right.
are you sweating, how does your feet feel. This is a great trick. Yeah, it's fascinating how you point out something that really makes sense. Yeah.
And you're making me think of something that I thought about in a long time, also relating to anxiety. I don't think I have anxiety per se, but just kind of like what we're talking about, just letting your head sometimes get the better of you in terms of being stressed in the moment because a mistake happened. But like I remember in LA, we had different weekly performance that we had to do in front of the class, in front of the teachers, and so I had one coming up on, I don't know, like a Thursday or something. And then practicing at home that week on Monday or Tuesday, I was young. I was 19 at that point. And I remember catching myself like doing a self fulfilling prophecy, meaning I would start daydreaming about performing in front of the class. And for some reason, I was daydreaming up in front of the class. So that could be like I was saying earlier, a healthy amount of again, I don't want to use anxiety, but a healthy amount of stress that just makes sure you practice so you get ready. But it was a bit too much. I caught myself making a mistake in front of the class, and so that's what I mean by a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like I was setting up myself for failure psychologically. And I think I had been doing that for my whole, well, not like a crazy amount, but I had never realized that up until that point in my life. And I kind of caught myself like, what am I doing? I'm not using my brain or my mind. I'm using my brain or my mind against me as opposed to working with me. So that was a real awakening because I realized I was doing that. So I stopped. I mean, I didn't, and even actually at that point I didn't do it. But there's an argument to be said that if you are going to visualize something, visualize yourself nailing the song, visualize, and even more specifically, visualize yourself actually playing the song in your mind. And studies have shown that neurologically speaking, when you visualize a song that you're playing with your fingers, and like you visualize the frets you're playing, the string, the coordination between both hands, the same neuron in your head fire the same way they do when you're actually practicing. If you never practiced before, it's not gonna do anything. Obviously, you have to have practice before for that to work. But there's a real something powerful happening when it comes to visualization. And so having a negative visualization is a setup, a trap for failure, basically. So our mind can work against us without us realizing sometimes. So being aware of that is a useful tool in all kinds of areas of life.
Yeah, there is something very uh, rewarding when you get to the point where you get conscious of something that is not helping. And when
Right.
we look at motivation, you can be motivated to run away from something, and there can be a healthy amount of something you want to get away from, but you also need to combine it with something you want to go towards. And in the
Right.
psychology literature, it's refers to there is a test they did with the mouse in a maze. Yeah, so they put the mouse that was hungry and a bit of cheese at the end, and it was doing it found its way to the cheese in a certain time because it was hungry, so it was motivated by the smell of the food. And when they add cat odor behind where the mouse was at the beginning, it's like, I don't know how much faster, but it's a lot faster. So it can be a good thing to know what you want to move away from, but that cannot be the only thing. And I really like that you added the fact that visualization is a tool, but if it's not combined with actual practice, putting in the work, it is not worth anything. And there is a trend that there's a trend about manifestation these days. I'm not saying there is a problem with seeing yourself performing well. The thing is, when we make people believe that I only did a marathon because I visualized myself and I never practiced, that's how it works.
No, you're daydreaming at that point. It's a dream as opposed to being based in concrete
Mhm.
reality. Like you not having the visualization is maybe not a hindrance, but it's well, let's put it another way. Having visualization is a great tool in your art in your tool of arsenal, like in your toolbox. But like you said, if that's not paired with a history of preparing, of physically getting ready, of mentally getting ready, yeah, it's fruitless. It's pointless. It's daydreaming at that point. So
Mhm.
you need both for
Yeah.
sure.
And how do you feel about um, when you you're just getting to a performance? Do you happen to have the imposter syndrome with all the experience you have? Does it still happen to you?
Not at this point. I mean, it used. I never. I did have imposter syndrome, but not so much. Well, I mean, when I was younger and played with players who I thought were way better than me, that I had a little bit of that without knowing it was that. But it's really only. But I always felt comfortable in my own skin when it came to music and guitar, for whatever reason. I got lucky with that, I guess. And but I did have imposter syndrome when I was doing because my last 3 years of studying, the last year, my bachelor, and the 2 years for my master's, I there was no playing whatsoever, no performance whatsoever. It was musicology basically, so research and theory and there I felt the imposter syndrome because it was a new world for me, and I mean I'm not always the most succinct when it comes to saying, like some people will say, I'll try to explain an idea and it'll take me a minute and I'll get my point across, but then someone will say, oh, and just say 3 words that resume what I just said. So that aspect played in my head a bit. I mean, I got over it after a while, but that's where I felt it most in my life, I would say. But while performing on stage, I'm lucky that I did. I mean, sometimes you're stressed, sometimes you're being judged by a professor, a university professor, so you're more I mean not doubting, but you're more aware of the moment, and you're more aware of how every note counts in a way. But it's not imposter syndrome per se at that point. I think I didn't. But and honestly, how to get rid of imposter syndrome is to over prepare, over practice like crazy. How to be confident is to if someone can fake confidence, then it can we can get fooled by it for a little while maybe, but after a while, it clearly shows. Especially if you go to perform or like I like to watch boxing and UFC a lot. So fighters will often say like, because sometimes they sound kind of cocky and a little bit annoying, but they're like that confidence that someone will have is backed up by the months of preparation leading up to that moment. So same thing for a concert. If you're confident going in and you can back up that confidence by just reminding yourself that you prepare for this every day for the last 2 months, that you took this seriously, that you didn't neglect the things that you wanted to work on. Because sometimes we put in the work, but we forget that we put in the work in a way, and we get caught up in the stress of the moment. But just reminding yourself that you're there for a reason, and that you didn't slack off coming up to this, will give you a real confidence that's unshakable in a way, and that's based in concrete reality as opposed to daydreaming again. I forget what your question was, but that kind of led me down that path.
I was asking about imposter syndrome.
Oh, right, yeah. No, but I didn't have it that much when it came to performing, because I think that I would prepare all the time.
Preparation,
especially at that pace.
Preparation is key. Like you, the thing, preparation helps so much because you're gonna feel anxious if you don't. But the what's interesting about preparation is that it can also be something that you lean on to, um, kind of a desperation a little bit. Like if you are preparing so much and you expect all your problems to be solved with that, well, uh, you can always have something not working. Like even though you prepared, like today, I didn't get the right mic stand. Does it really make a lesser interview because of it?
Right.
Doesn't.
Right.
But you definitely need a decent amount of preparation, and I'm on the side of a little more is better than a little less. But it depends on the actual thing you have to do. Lately, I did a presentation, and it was just a few people. I didn't have the time to prepare as much as I would like to, but I would have taken a few hours to sit down, write my thoughts, get the content right. And sometimes I like precision, so it's my style. I would like to have some keywords written down, but I didn't have the time. So what I thought was, okay, I didn't get the time to prepare as much as I wanted to. Am I gonna skip it and just not go because it might not be as good as I would want it to? Or the fun thing is, one of the goal of that presentation was to get better at speaking in front of people naturally without rehearsing something. Yeah,
Preparation.
yeah.
Okay.
So it made sense
Well,
to do it that way. And it turned out that I had just a few elements of preparation, and I let myself play at trying to figure out what I had to say to reflect
right.
my thoughts. And it made sense with the audience, and we ended up having uh, everyone sharing their thoughts about the content I was presenting, and it actually made me more focused on the audience and more aware of where
Right. Yeah.
the energy in the conversation is going. So what I fig
Instead of being focused on your paper and just following this route.
yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
that was quite a realization, because this type of meetings, I did this before, and I was over prepared and I performed less.
Right. And no, and like having said all of this regarding to preparation, I'll always speak to guitar on this. There is such a thing as over preparing also. And like the damage, well, damage, not the right word, but the negative aspect of that, I started to feel it when we went together at the CGF in 2015, where, yeah, 2015, yeah, yeah, where it was my first, like one of the biggest, well, the biggest fingerstyle competition in Canada. It was my first time attending and participating. So I had no clue what to, well, I knew the biggest players in the fingerstyle world had won in the past. So, but I had no clue what to expect in terms of the level of competition. I knew it was high, but meaning
Mhm.
I didn't know anyone personally. So I didn't know who was going to perform. And I remember I had another side project at that point also that took a lot of my time. So I would practice like 3 or 4 hours on that side project and then get to acoustic. I think it was 3 piece I had to prepare. So I would play each piece 10 times. And like by the fourth or fifth time, I was sick of playing it. I had no fun, but I just kept going through it. And I did that for like a month or something. And it really sucked the joy and the fun out of actually play. I'm not sick of playing those pieces. Like it was not fun anymore. Like it was as like and you there's something to be said about the first time you play a
Right.
piece in your day. Like now when I play a concert, I'll warm up, I'll rehearse for 30 minutes, an hour, but I won't play a single song and I'll be playing that set later. Because there's something you know, maybe because it's French the first time they're playing that day. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something happening when you're playing a song for the first time that day, especially in front of a crowd, because you're way more in the moment also. So not preparing obviously is not the solution to what I'm saying. You need to prepare, especially the earlier you are in your career, the more preparation there needs. But after a certain point, you need to find a balance between, and you need to know yourself between okay, what's the healthy amount of preparation that I need to do, but also leave room for being in the moment, like you were saying when you're doing a presentation, because things will happen that you can't control that sometimes you have to go with as opposed to sticking rigidly with your original approach that you had in mind. But also when it comes to performing song, there is a there's a lack of enthusiasm that happens, for me at least, when you over prepare a song. So there's like nowadays, if some songs I've been playing for like 10 years, so I don't need to prepare them that much when it comes to playing them live. But like newer songs, I'll never do more than 4 or 5
Mm.
repetition in a day. Um, obviously, a new song you need to prepare it more because it's new and you're not that at ease with it. But doing more than that completely sucks the
Yeah,
fun out of. And guitar is supposed to be fun. Like you're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to. So finding that balance is
yeah,
important also.
definitely. And I can see why you get turned off by the fifth time you're playing it, and you're expecting yourself to play it 10 times each piece. So that's 30 times. And there is a concept that we think of when we want to help people deal with um anxiety and or fears. It's the concept of exposition. So when you are facing something that is I don't know, if you're afraid of heights, go in an elevator, well, just to be within the range where you can see an elevator will pique your anxiety. And usually at that point, people will l- leave, take the stairs, do something else, and it makes them avoid the negative emotion. So it lowers the negative emotion at the short term. But the next time you see an elevator, oh boy, it's even worse. So the anxiety curve goes up, goes down, goes even up, down, and at the end you can see. And this is how you develop um a phobia, or something that you just like are totally not able to be near to. And the strategy that we see in psychology is the exposition strategy. So you want to look at the tiniest you want to cut in different, in small pieces, what makes you afraid. So let's say it's an elevator, and you want to reduce that to the smallest piece you can. So maybe just looking at the elevator door from afar, if it brings your anxiety up to 4 or 5 out of 10, you can deal with it for a few seconds. If you are able to stay in the uncomfortable moment where anxiety is there, but it's not killing you, and you stay uncomfortable, you stay in that moment, and after a period of time, anxiety will fall down, it will reduce. But if you're not able to wait until it reduces by staying present on the uncomfortable thing, it becomes avoidance. So if you stay there, you expose yourself slowly, and you do this with the elevator from afar, and then you go closer to it, and then you get inside of it, and then you can actually move stairs. And so exposition is something that can reduce negative emotion if you do it right. The thing is, the
Yes.
same strategy applies to positive emotions. So if you like to play a song, and you play it, and you play it, and you play it so much, your positive emotion, if you have a little bit of it and then you step away from it, it lowers. The next time you go back to it, it gets up,
Yeah.
it gets even higher, and over time you get a rise in positive emotions. But when you stay in that positive emotion so long, it kind of fades.
Well, I never heard that
Yeah.
perspective. That's interesting.
So there is something to be said about um, the negative emotions. You want to expose yourself to them for the long enough so you stay uncomfortable until you get comfortable. But with the positive emotion,
Right.
you want to tinkle with it just enough so you get a taste, but you don't, like, when you have a conversation with somebody, you see a friend and you have so much fun, and you leave at that time, well, you're excited to see him the next time. But if you have so much
Right,
fun
right,
that
right,
you
right.
keep talking, and it goes on for hours until you have nothing left to say, you're both tired, exhausted, well, the
Right,
next time you won't be as excited to see him. Oh,
right, right.
yeah.
That makes sense. No, definitely. I never perceived it that way when it comes to the positive emotion, but that makes
Hmm.
sense.
So um we're gonna have to wrap this up shortly. um Before I let you go, I want to thank you for everything you shared with us today. I think there's a lot to learn about your journey, about how you developed a mindset that allows you to improve, to go towards something that's meaningful, and to bring out the best of your potential. There's a lot to learn about that. So I'm thankful. and I'm sure everyone who listens to really appreciated that conversation. Um, you have a music school in New Brunswick. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's also always nice to catch up and to have these type of conversations. Yeah, so the music school is in St. Leonard in New Brunswick. So at first, it was just me by myself in my home, basically, in 2018 when I came back to New Brunswick. Now it's expanded. It's me I teach guitar, bass, piano, and ukulele. I try not to do too much ukulele. It's not the most inspiring instrument in the world. But now there's a drum teacher, there's a vocal teacher. So I'm in the last year, I've been trying to expand more and trying to to expand more and have more instruments basically to offer. And just because there's not, like, there's obviously less people here than any big city, but the advantage that I have here is that, I mean, I don't have a monopoly on the market, but it's way closer to that reality as opposed to if I were in Montreal, let's say. So I taught in Montreal also for years before coming back to New Brunswick, and I never had the amount of students that I have right now. And so, and my approach basically to like, I would get I started to teach probably less than when I was 16 or a couple of years after I started to play. And I was the worst teacher then. I was way too intense in my own mindset. Like, people would come, I had 2, 3 students at that time. You would come to the lesson like 1 week after the first lesson. I'm like, why did you practice 5 hours a day? What is this? You're making me waste my, like, I would be way too intense and not realizing that I was just not mature enough at that point to be a good teacher. So now I obviously changed, but my approach is also, not everyone takes lessons. Most people don't take lessons to become professional musicians. They want to have a hobby. They want to have something to change their mind. They want to play songs that they've always loved. They want to play around the campfire. So um, realizing that as a teacher and taking a unique approach to each student is really the key to make sure that the student can become the musician that he sees in his own mind is his goal in a way. Like, if I start to do martial arts, I'm not gonna go fight in a cage. I'm just trying to get in better shape. I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to develop new skills. So the coach who understands that and doesn't push me to go in the fight will be a good coach as opposed to someone who doesn't understand that. So that's kind of the general rule that I take when it comes to teaching in my school. But also, I have some students that I prepare to go to university, and I prepared for them to go do their bachelor and stuff like that. So I have to switch a bit my approach at that point to be a bit more demanding, a bit more not intense necessarily, but a bit more demanding, a bit more to require more out of them, because when they go to university, that's what they're gonna have to face. So trying to prepare them in that way and not sugarcoat things, so that it's a shock for them when they go to university in a way. So yeah, so it's been going great, and I feel lucky not to have to rely on music performance to pay the bill. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to have to find the next gig to pay the bill or to have to do another album. Even though, because I think each album should be something unique, that's something new for me, or something. So a new album, each album should be something new. So if I didn't find the answer yet of what I want the next album to be, forcing myself to make an album is artistic cheating in a way, or artistically fake, or it has no meaning or no integrity to me. So I am really glad about that, to have the school, because I can pay the bill with that and not have to worry about the performing aspect of it. That's kind of additional bonus.
Yeah, definitely. Leaving the creative aspect of playing guitar to the something true about the creativity side. There is, you said the word integrity, and I really feel this is as close as it can get to the truth. You want musicians to play something that really comes from their soul, and it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, Otherwise, what's the point? Like, there's so much music out there. And I wouldn't say the same thing about a hockey player. I mean, a person can have integrity, whatever they're doing, but like playing hockey with integrity sounds kind of a weird thing to say. It's not really a, well, I could be wrong. Maybe a hockey player will tell me that I'm wrong, but I think it's something that I see more when it comes to art. Because relating back to what I was saying about finding your own voice, if you find your own voice as an artist and you have to be in a way vulnerable to present that to the world, because you're showing yourself to the world, you're exposing yourself to the world. If that does not come with integrity, or if you're doing something, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing something to make money, but when it comes to art, if you're only doing it for money, again, someone can do that, but I think it kind of shows after a while. There's something lacking. There's nothing exciting about it. There's nothing trying to break certain boundaries about it. It's all safe and within the rules and like meant to. It's like the difference between giving you candy that you'll enjoy right away as opposed to giving you a meal that has more substance to it and more depth. And maybe it's new, you're not quite sure, but you're discovering things. So I think art integrity is the most important quality when it comes to whatever art you're doing.
Interesting. And about the teaching philosophy, you said how important it was to understand and to be, it's like your goal is to help the musician to manifest the vision they have in their mind for themselves. This is a big this changes everything from forcing somebody to do something they don't see themselves doing.
Right.
This is a big step up because you are at their service and not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Like the story I was telling earlier about teaching younger and being too intense. I was trying to, without realizing it, impose my own goals and my own vision of playing guitar to someone else. Like my own vision at that point was to become the best I could be. So I was imposing that on them without them ever asking ever for that. So yeah, that's, and it also makes the teaching job way more fun. Like people tell me all the time, like, aren't you sick of teaching the G chord, or aren't you sick of having students not practice or something like that when it comes to the lesson? If my expectation or if my approach is to impose my own vision of the musical journey, which means practicing a lot when you're, especially in your formative years, and I'm gonna get frustrated because that's not what they're trying to do, and then they're gonna come to the lesson not having practicing us, and I'm gonna get frustrated because I feel they're not listening to me. But that's just not what they're trying to do. I have to accept that and realize that some week they're not gonna practice. It's not because they're ill-intentioned. Life happens. They have family. They have kids. They have jobs. So being aware of that reality and accepting that the student is here for a reason that is not the same as mine. I was taking lesson when I was sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but it's not important if it is or not. It's what's important is that we reach an understanding of what their goals are, and then we can go on from there. And it makes my job way more fun also, and less like I don't remember the last time I got frustrated for someone who told me that they didn't practice. It doesn't really affect me. I mean, obviously it's fun when they practice, but there's all kinds of way to go around that and still make the experience enjoyable.
That's probably a very good quality for a teacher, not to be irritated by student not performing, because no one's perfect. We all do that.
If you're a university teacher or something like that, that's a different story. What I'm talking refers more to teaching beginners, intermediate, and advanced. But if a lot of my students are more beginners, then you have to take that approach. But if you're university, I think you do have to expect more out of your students, and the context of where you teach matters a lot, obviously.
Yeah, when you're beginning at something, you're learning. It's got to be fun at the beginning.
Yeah. Otherwise, why do it?
Exactly. And we can be beginners at every age, at every stage of life.
A good book too, if you want to end on this, that the Zen guitar. I forget. I read this like 15 years ago, so I forget who the author is. But he talks about the journey from white belt to black belt and back again to white belt. Meaning, when you're white belt, you're hopefully humble and therefore ready to learn new knowledge. Your brain is ready to soak in new information, and you don't think that you know better than someone else because you're just a beginner. Like, I'm not gonna think if I start to do kickboxing, I'm not gonna think I'm better than the coach. I'm just starting. It would be really egomaniac to think that of myself. So then when we get better, we start to gain confidence in our own skills and our own understanding and our own perception. Then we get the black belt and we feel that we may be a master, but the true master has the knowledge and skill of a black belt, but the mentality of a white belt. He's still willing to learn. He's still willing to grow and to not think that his journey is over and he's learned everything, basically. So the real black belt is the one that comes back to the white belt mentality, basically.
Yeah, definitely. When you realize how much left there is to learn and to grow, um, life is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sam, thank you very much for your time today. It
My
was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Yes. Let's do it again sometimes.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.